The Green Bay Packers signed a wide receiver, and that wide receiver is former Chief Mecole Hardman. All jokes aside, I'm not mad at this signing, honestly. It's a one-year deal for Mecole Hardman. Now, let's wait for the money to come out, but I'd almost bet it's a very, very small deal with minimal guarantees, and there won't be much risk involved. Meaning there's no guarantee that Hardman even makes the 53-man roster. But again, I'm not too upset with this signing because it gives the Packers instant depth at a field stretcher receiver role. But more importantly, it gives them a returner day one. It seems like the Packers are moving on from Keyshawn Nixon at kick return. At least that's what he's been saying. And I think we can all agree that the Packers should 100% stop putting Jayden Reed back at punt return. So Mecole Hardman offers great special teams value right away with a little bit of upside. You know, this is a gadget type of player, a player with a ton of speed that maybe thrown into the Matt LaFleur system can thrive and might be able to access some of that old potential. Now, will Mecole Hardman come on our roster and be the Christian Watson until he returns and 700 plus? Probably not. That's really, really unlikely to happen. But I can definitely see the outlook if you're Brian Gutekunst on a very low-risk signing here to bring in a wide receiver. That's a burner, right? You already have Bo Melton on your team. That's a receiver that, more of a deep threat receiver. Now you add Mecole Hardman, who you can use in motion packages. You can hand off the ball to in jet sweeps, and that's even if he makes it on the offense. But I know right off the bat, special teams value. Coming out of Georgia in the 2019 draft, Mecole Hardman had an 8.30 RAS, and really it's not a 9+ because of his size, 5'10", 183 pounds, but did put up an impressive 17 bench reps for that size. Now, obviously what got Hardman drafted so highly, all the way in that second round to the Kansas City Chiefs, was his elite speed. He ran a 4.33 40, really nice 20-yard split, very good 10-yard split, and a nice 3-cone at 6.75. Now, honestly, I was surprised when I looked up the stats and realized Mecole Hardman's been in the league for 6 years. I remember when the Kansas City Chiefs drafted him, they already had Tyreek Hill in the building. I'm like, how do they keep getting their hands on these extremely fast wide receivers? And he was touted to become the next Tyreek Hill. Obviously, that didn't happen, but he actually had some pretty solid seasons there in KC. Now, he didn't live up to his draft type. He didn't live up to that second-round draft pick. As a rookie, 538 yards, 6 touchdowns. The year after that, 560 yards, 4 touchdowns. The year 3 was his best year, 693 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then he dealt with injuries in 2022, only played in 8 games, 297 yards and 4 touchdowns. Then in 2023, started with the Kansas City Chiefs, but then was traded to the New York Jets. And for the Jets, he had a measly 6 yards receiving. Then this past season, the Chiefs decided to bring back Mecole Hardman onto the roster, played in 12 games, didn't start in a single one, had 12 receptions for 90 yards and no touchdowns, and of course was an impending free agent and very low on the list of, wide receivers available. Even though he's been in the league for 6 seasons, Hardman's still 27 years old, actually just turned 27 6 days ago. So definitely still has the speed, 27-year-old wide receiver, maybe not this 4.33 speed he had coming out of college anymore, but to put him back at punt return, get Jayden Reed off at punt return, put him at kick return, I think that's a huge, huge plus. We see every year of his career, he's at least returned 1 kickoff. We see his rookie year, he actually had 27 returns for 704 yards and a touchdown, which is, a long of 104. Yards per return at 26.1. After that, they started to use him less and less and less as a kick returner. But most recently, Kansas City, when they brought him back, they said, hey, let's throw him at kick return again. And he had 5 returns for 132 yards and 26.4 per return. Actually better than his rookie season in terms of yards per return. So right off the bat, he goes in and he'll be our kick return number 1 so long Nixon's not going to be there anymore. And he also, like I said, becomes punt return. He's been a punt returner basically all of his career. Again, that middle area where he really stopped returning punts and kicks as much. His rookie year was 9.3 yards per return. His top was his year 3 in 2021 at 12.1 yards per return. And most recently, again, when Kansas City brought him back and said, hey, you're just pretty much a returner for us, a pretty solid average at 10.2 per return and a long of 55. And the Packers have heavily struggled at punt return these past couple of seasons, in my opinion. So I think this is already an instant upgrade. Now, in terms of PFF grades, Hardman's actually graded out very well over his career outside of 2023. And you can write that up to because he had to go between two different teams and everything just wasn't great. But every other year, he's been above average and some years above a 70 overall grade, including 2024, the 72.8. And you see the first 3 years all around that 70.0 mark. And as you can see over his career, when we switch it to rushing, he's utilized as a running wide receiver, kind of like we used Jaden Reed this past season. He had 5 attempts for 62 yards, a 12.4 attempt, and a very good running grade of 85.8. His best season running the football in terms of yardage was 2021, where he had 14 attempts, 101 rushing yards, a touchdown, but he did have 3 fumbles, so really struggled fumbling the football back then in 2021. So if Mecole Hardman does make it onto the Green Bay Packers offense, he's a receiver that's a deep threat receiver, a very fast receiver, and he might not even get many touches on offense. He might not even be on the roster come week 1, right? This guy's supposed to go through training camp, OTAs, all of that, make the 53-man roster. And this doesn't change anything for the Green Bay Packers draft process. I could very well still see them going and drafting 2 receivers, one early, one to the middle to late rounds. And at this point, Christian Watson won't start the year on the 53-man roster. Now adding Mecole Hardman puts us back at 6 wide receivers if you're counting Bo Melton and Malik Heath, and Mecole Hardman as the back 3. And then, of course, Reed, Dobbs, and Wicks as the first 3. So again, I'm not mad at this signing. I think it's going to be a very low money signing, very low guarantees. Probably not the receiver that everyone thought the Packers would be signing this free agency. I think there were definitely some earlier options, but it seems the Packers are very comfortable with not only who they have in the receiver room, but potentially going into this drafting, adding talent through the draft. I appreciate you guys coming by to the video. Some late news here. Of course, the Packers always have random signings, random days, random nights, but wanted to get this video out for you guys and kind of go over my instant thoughts on this signing. Appreciate you guys coming by. I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go.